The Agweek Market Wrap is sponsored by Gateway Building Systems.
Welcome to the Agweek Market Wrap, brought to you by Gateway Building Systems. I'm Randy Koenen with the Red River Farm Network. We're joined once again by Randy Martinson of Martinson Ag Risk Management. Hey, Randy.
Hey, Randy, how's it going today?
Going good. How we do this week? Looks like we're kind of a mixed week here as far as the grains go, huh?
Yeah, it's going to be mixed. This is, as of Friday morning and up until now, we've seen the wheat market come under some heavy selling pressure this week. We're losing some ground in all three, the wheat exchanges. Corn is also seeing a little bit of a pullback, and a lot of that is tied to technicals and a little bit of improvement as far as weather is concerned, as the southern plains are expected to get rain, which is certainly going to help the winter wheat region. And then soybeans are actually trading with some small gains up until the start of Friday. Now, strong demand, good demand, and concerns about South America, primarily Brazil, as they continue to be hot and dry.
Well, that's just it. We're watching weather. We're watching what the Fed did. Market just hasn't been reacting like we expected. I think weather seems to be overdriving everything.
I think you're right. There for a while, a couple sessions this week, it was like watching paint dry. We just didn't do anything as the market was trying to, just figure out what it should pay attention to. Now, hot and dry weather as you go into the last 2 weeks of September are not negative. They're negative. They're not bullish because that means we're getting harvest. The crop is drying down. We're getting harvest going, and we are starting to hear a lot of combines rolling, even up here in the northern plains where guys are taking soybeans off. They got pushed maybe a little bit too much the last couple of weeks. Even some corn coming off up here. But normally when you start talking about hot and dry at the end of September going into October, that's a little bit negative.
Yeah, for sure. Well, not only that too, but then we had the Fed cut the interest rate by 50 basis points, and the market did almost totally the opposite of what you would expect.
Yeah, it was a bigger cut than expected. Most were thinking it would be a quarter and they'd ease into this, but they came in and made a pretty big statement. And, it took the market a day before it actually responded to that rate cut. And now, of course, everybody's on the bandwagon that the Fed is going to lower it another half a point in November. Well, we'll see. There's a lot of things that have to happen before then, but it's likely for sure we'll see another quarter point, at least in the November and the December meetings. Whether or not we see a half a point again is going to be questionable.
Yeah, I think what did they say in their some of their verbiage on Wednesday? They were going to lower it like four times through the 25 year, something like that.
So that's, that half their meetings, and they're looking at having, lower rates come into play again. And I would bet that their goal is to get it back down to like a 1.5 to a 2.5%. So they're going to start making some cuts to get it towards that direction. Now, they've got a good start. That certainly did help, the stock market as the Dow and gold traded to all-time never seen before contract highs. It's kind of interesting to see again counterintuitive that gold and the Dow are rallying together, but that continues to be the case. And the dollar traded down to almost 14-month lows.
Yep. Oh, yeah, as you mentioned, the harvest pressure starting to pick up for the corn and beans. Looks like we're kind of easing the harvest pressure on the wheat side of things.
Yeah, right. We're coming to the end of the harvest season. Right now, we're planting, and the dry conditions down in the southern plains have helped support wheat. But this week, they've got rain in the forecast. Now, Kansas did pick up some rain earlier in the week. They're saying within the next 5 days, they're supposed to get more. That's putting some pressure in on the wheat market. Slow demand continues to be a problem with wheat too, as we just are not getting the export sales. On the flip side, we're seeing good sales in soybeans, but we're not thinking that it's going to last a long time as Brazil is starting to plant. They're slow in getting their planting going, but now they've got rain in the forecast for the 11 to 15 day, which will certainly help to encourage more planting to start here in the next week.
I think the biggest thing there is we're so used to seeing them have maybe earlier than normal monsoon seasons, and this is going to be more of a normal year where their monsoon really doesn't start until sometime in October.
Exactly. Right now, they normally are allowed to start planting September 15th, and then not a lot of activity has happened up until now because of how dry it is. Well, with this forecast, it'll start encouraging some guys to get the beans planted. Now, if we were looking at dry conditions continuing until about that October 10th, then we'd start getting a little bit more concerned, a little bit more nervous.
Yeah. Biggest thing is for that second crop, corn.
Exactly. I mean, the later they plant the soybeans, the less likely it's going to be for that second safrinha corn crop, and that certainly would help support the U.S. Corn market, especially with demand. And right now, USDA's reports show that we're going to continue to see strong demand for our corn moving forward, and our stocks are not building. But we can change our export picture in a hurry, especially if Brazil has another bumper crop.
Yep. Now, as of this recording Friday morning, it looks like a little bit of dry weather concerns in Australia. Argentina is also having a little, maybe a little bit of a drier start as well.
Exactly. And they're also seeing some trouble with shipping in Argentina because of the dry conditions in the Paraná River. So they're basically kind of the same situation we had last year with the Mississippi. They're loading their barges only about half to two-thirds and moving them up the river. And that is going to increase cost for them as far as shipping is concerned.
Yeah. Well, that shipping, Mississippi's not out of the woods yet either, as dry as that Ohio Valley is.
Exactly. And we could likely start to see some, smaller barges, the barges being loaded a little bit less here now moving forward as well. And it's also then going to impact with the fertilizer coming up the river too on a return trip. So there is some issues that we still have to work out in the US as well.
Yeah. Do you see us then kind of just staying range bound here with in the corn and beans?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see us maybe come back and test the lows. Right now it looks like corn is maybe put in a double top, and technically we could see a little bit of a retracement there. I wouldn't expect that we're going to go to new lows, but I think we could test the old lows that we've seen just not that long ago. I don't think the crop is going to be there. I think, we're starting to hear some disappointing yield results coming out of the Corn Belt on some of the early harvested just because, the dry conditions did take the top off the crop.
Yeah. Biggest thing is if the drier conditions hurt that crop can offset some of that really good crop we've been hearing as well.
Well, exactly. So and then we're going to start our harvesting up here. So we're going to now start to see just where our crops coming into play. And right now, I think it's a little too early to get too good of an idea or too good of a estimate for what where our crop is. But by the next week, we're going to see, I think, quite a few beans harvested up in the northern plains.
Yeah, for sure. I just have talking to one of the elevator guys around here this morning, and he was saying that too. He said, pretty quiet yet. He said, but if things hold here by next week, we should see quite a bit of soybeans coming off.
Yeah, that heat really pushed the crop, and where the drowned out or where the crop was mudded in, it certainly did change quick once we got hot and dry and we ran out of moisture. Those crops started to turn fast.
Yeah, that's for sure. Anything else we need to talk about the grains before we move to livestock?
No, and the big thing is now we're just watching the weather and just where harvest is going to come into play, and we're going to see what our actual yields are.
All right. Livestock side of things, of course, we're recording this ahead of a cattle and feed report this afternoon, but most traders I've talked with, I don't know what your opinion on it is too, but this one here gives us something to talk about, but not a big mover the way it sounds.
Normally it's not, and we'll see now. I mean, it'll give us an idea if we're looking at herd expansion, depending on the mix between steers and heifers. We're also, I think the bigger thing is going to be, will we see placements ahead of or behind last year at this time? Last month, we saw bigger than expected placements because of the imports from China or from Canada and from Mexico. If that continues again this month, we could see placements a little bit higher, which would be a little negative for our market. But as of now, they have it kind of coming in as a non-event.
Sure. The cattle market, in particular, even the lean hogs, a little bit following that Fed interest rate cut, that market just shot higher following the equities.
It did, and that was really good news. I mean, now, you cut it that much, it brings that much more disposable revenue back to the consumer, which means that it's likely we could continue to see uh, eating out in restaurants, the red meat consumption to continue to be fairly strong. So hopefully that transpires and does occur. We are looking at higher beef production, which was a surprise. We saw that in the last crop production report, but because of the imports, we're seeing just as many cattle go into our feedlots as we did last year.
Yeah. Uh, Packer margins, though, too, have come down and barely breaking even if they are.
Yeah, exactly. And, and we need to, and part of that is because they needed to bid up to get the product. And right now, there's not a lot of cattle have been coming in town. I don't think we've seen a cash trade develop this week at all. Last week, we did see one a little bit higher, but we're getting tight enough on the supplies in the short term that it's taking something to bid to get the producers to bring them.
Sure. How about the lean hog market?
I mean, that's been moving a little bit. We've been seeing the hopefulness of a little bit better demand. We've had some disparity in the prices, but cash has helped support that market, and I think that's what's helping to bring it higher.
Sure. Any concerns with the additional tariffs going on to the Chinese electric vehicles and retaliation? So I'm guessing hogs, probably a pork, and then maybe soybeans would be the targets.
And that would be the targets right now. Of course, we haven't heard much as far as what China's looking at any kind of retaliation at all. But and they're not really importing that much from us. I mean, you look at it. I think to date, we just had for the first 8 months of the year, we just had a summary of their soybean imports. And, the last 2 months, China's imported a record amount, but most of them coming from Brazil. Brazil's soybean exports to China are up by over 200%. They're down 76% from the U.S. That tells me that, if China is going to retaliate, there's not a lot for them to bite into because we're just not moving a lot of product towards them.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else, Randy, we need to be aware of?
Again, in the meat side of things, this cattle on feed report's going to mean quite a bit. We've had a nice rally in this market. The lower dollar has helped. At this point, I guess I would be looking for, we might be seeing a little bit of a peak in the cattle market short term just because supplies are going to start to increase. I would expect a little bit of a downturn when we get into the fall, but once the auction sale runs start to slow down, we'll see this market recover.
All right. Thanks, Randy. Randy Martinson, president of Martinson Agri Management. For markets and market analysis throughout the week, listen to your local Red River Farm Network radio station affiliate, or you can visit rrfn.com. The Agweek Market Wrap, sponsored by Gateway Building Systems.